Nickel cadmium. Nickel cadmium, or NiCd, is the old-school rechargeable battery from the 80s and 90s that used to power everything from early laptops and portable computers to chunky RC cars and heavy-duty power tools. They were famous for being tough as nails. You could drop them or leave them in the freezing cold and they'd still work. But here's the thing, NiCd batteries suffered from a massive, annoying problem called the memory effect. See, if you didn't fully drain the battery before plugging it back in, the cadmium crystals inside would actually grow larger and reduce the surface area. This increased the internal resistance, making the battery heat up and struggle to provide high current when you actually needed it. So if you constantly recharged it at 40%, the battery would eventually treat that 40% as empty, making the battery life feel shorter and shorter. And because they have a very low energy density of only about 50 watt-hours per kilogram, they were incredibly heavy for the tiny amount of power they actually held. Eventually, the world realized that dealing with toxic waste and heavy bricks just wasn't worth the headache. Nickel metal hydride. Nickel metal hydride, or NiMH, came out as the green successor to NiCd, and this is what you usually find in those rechargeable AA batteries for your Xbox controller. They mostly fix the memory effect and could hold about 3 times more energy in the same size. Technically, these use a hydrogen-absorbing alloy for the negative electrode, which allows them to reach a much higher volumetric energy density than the old NiCd. But the catch was the self-discharge rate. Back then, if you charged an NiMH battery and left it in a drawer for a month, you'd come back to find it almost completely dead. It just couldn't hold its juice while sitting idle. And since they have a flat discharge curve, they stay at a nominal 1.2 volts for most of their life and then suddenly drop off, which is why your controller might show full battery 1 minute and then just die the next. They were an improvement, but they were still too heavy and slow to charge for the new era of smartphones. Lithium-ion, Li-ion. Lithium-ion, or Li-ion, is the version that changed the world. Lithium-ion batteries are what power your phone, your laptop, and your electric car. They are incredibly light and use a liquid electrolyte to move lithium ions back and forth at high speed. The best part is they have zero memory effect, so you can charge your phone whenever you want. These batteries operate at a much higher nominal voltage, usually 3.7 volts, which means you need fewer cells to power high-voltage electronics compared to those old 1.2-volt NiMH cells. But here's the thing, Li-ion batteries are extremely sensitive to heat. If the voltage goes above 4.2 volts during charging, it can cause lithium plating on the anode, which creates tiny metallic spikes called dendrites that can puncture the internal separator. And what makes it scary is that if that separator fails, it goes into thermal runaway. This is a fancy way of saying the battery generates its own oxygen to feed a fire, making it almost impossible to put out. That's why airlines are so paranoid about these. They're basically high-energy chemical bombs if they get punctured. Lithium polymer, LiPo, is like the flexible brother of Li-ion. Instead of a liquid, it uses a polymer gel-like electrolyte. This is a huge deal for manufacturers because the battery doesn't have to be a hard rectangle. It can be thin, curved, or shaped to fit inside a super slim laptop. What really makes these special is their C rating, which tells you how fast the battery can safely discharge its energy. LiPos can dump their entire capacity in seconds, which is why they're the only choice for high-performance racing drones. But here's the catch. LiPo batteries are even more fragile. Because they are encased in a soft foil pouch instead of a hard metal can, they have zero protection against physical swelling or punctures. Once a LiPo starts swelling, it's a massive fire hazard, and you have to get rid of it immediately before it pops and torches your house. Solid-state battery. Solid-state battery is the holy grail that companies like Toyota and Tesla are fighting to build. In a normal battery, the stuff between the positive and negative sides is a liquid, which is why it can leak or explode. But a solid-state battery uses a solid ceramic or glass material instead. This makes it almost impossible to set on fire, even if you stab it with a knife. They can also hold way more energy and charge in just a few minutes instead of hours. The only reason we aren't using them yet is that they are incredibly expensive to mass produce without that solid layer cracking. But once they hit the market, your electric car will have double the range and charge as fast as a gas car.